The Galactic Council had existed for 12,000 years. In all that time, the cluster remained the most dangerous region in known space. 17 different species had fought therefore. They killed each other over resources, over ancient grudges, over insults spoken 10 generations ago. The wars never stopped. Peace talks always failed. Every diplomat from every advanced civilization had tried. They all returned defeated, or they did not return at all. Ambassador stood at the viewport of her small ship, watching the cluster grow larger. Stars burned red and orange there, surrounded by the debris of countless battles. She was 63 years old. Her hair had turned gray. Her face carried the lines of a difficult life. She had grown up poor on Earth, worked her way through school, and spent 40 years negotiating peace in humanity's own conflicts. She had ended 3 civil wars. She had prevented nuclear exchanges twice. Now Earth's government had sent her to do the impossible. Her assistant, a young man named David, joined her at the viewport. He looked worried. Everyone looked worried when they thought about the cluster. "Ambassador," he said, "I've been reading the reports again. They have killed over 2 billion members of the species in the last century alone. The crystalline hegemony considers biological life to be a disease that must be cleansed. The Wraith Collective eats their enemies, literally eats them. How are we supposed to bring peace to beings like this?" Smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. "By remembering something important, David. Every conflict, no matter how ancient or bloody, comes down to needs and fears. Understand what they need, understand what they fear, then find the bridge between them." David shook his head. Other ambassadors understood those things too. The Empire sent their best negotiators. They've been doing diplomacy for 8,000 years. They failed. They failed, agreed, because they approached it as they brought assumptions about honor and hierarchy. They couldn't imagine thinking any other way. She turned from the viewport. "Humans are different, David. We're young. We're weak. We have no ancient traditions telling us how things must be done. That makes us flexible in ways older species cannot understand." The ship entered the cluster 3 days later, had requested meetings with all 17 species. Most refused immediately. They laughed at her request. The crystalline hegemony did not respond at all. The Wraith Collective sent back a message suggesting they would enjoy consuming her flesh. Was not discouraged. She had expected this. She began with the 3 species willing to meet her. They were the Sentient Chorus and the Iron Covenant. These 3 had the longest history of conflict between them. They had been killing each other since before humans learned to use fire. She met with the first. They were beautiful beings, tall and slender, with skin that shifted colors based on their emotions. Their representative, High Singer, greeted her with obvious skepticism. "Human," said, "your species has existed for a mere handful of centuries in space. We have sung our songs of war for 100,000 years. What wisdom could you possibly offer us?" Sat down across from him. She did not try to impress him with human achievements. She did not argue about humanity's worth. Instead, she asked a simple question. "Tell me about your children, High Singer." Blinked. No diplomat had ever asked him such a thing. They always discussed territory, resources, strategic advantages. They spoke of ships and weapons and borders. No one asked about children. "Why would you ask this?" he demanded. "Because I want to understand what you're fighting for," said. "Not what you're fighting against. Tell me what matters to you." Was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, his skin shifted to a soft blue color that's translator identified as deep emotion. He began to speak about his daughter. He talked about her first song, her dreams of seeing the galaxy at peace, her fear every time he left for the front lines. He spoke for 2 hours, listened to every word. When he finished, she asked, "What do you think the Iron Covenant fights for?" His colors shifted to angry red. "They fight because they are machines. They care only for efficiency and conquest. They have no souls." Nodded slowly. "Would you allow me to ask them the same question I asked you, and would you be willing to hear their answer?" The Iron Covenant were indeed machines. They had been created by a biological species that died out long ago. They were cold, logical, seemingly emotionless. Their representative, designation 774, met with in a chamber of pure white light. "Human ambassador," the machine said, "state your purpose efficiently. We do not value lengthy discussion." "I will be brief," said. "Why do you continue to fight They threaten our existence. Analysis indicates they will destroy us if given the opportunity." "Have you ever asked them what they want?" 774 paused. This was unusual. The machine rarely paused. Negotiation with the has consistently failed. Their emotional nature makes logical discussion impossible. "What if I told you," said carefully, "that high singer just spent 2 hours telling me about his daughter's dream of peace? What if I told you he fears for his children every single day?" Another pause. "This information is inconsistent with our models of behavior." "Your models are incomplete," said. "You've been analyzing their military actions for thousands of years. Have you ever analyzed their hopes, their fears for their families, their exhaustion from endless war?" 774 was silent for a full minute. Then the machine spoke again. "We have not. Such data was deemed irrelevant to strategic planning." "It isn't irrelevant," said. "It's the most important data there is." She spent months moving between species. She met with the sentient chorus, a collective consciousness that feared individual identity. She discovered they fought because they believed other species wanted to fragment them, to force them to become separate beings. She learned that this fear came from an ancient trauma, when a species they trusted had tried to do exactly that. She visited the warriors who valued strength above all things. She discovered that their aggression came from desperation. There was dying. They needed new territories to survive, and they believed no one would share resources with them willingly. She even made contact with the crystalline hegemony. They were silicon-based beings who viewed biological life with disgust, but discovered the reason for their hatred. Millions of years ago, biological species had nearly wiped them out, viewing them as non-living resources to be mined. Their aggression was the response of trauma survivors who had sworn never to be victims again. One by one gathered their stories. She did not judge them. She did not take sides. She listened. She asked questions. She found the fears hiding beneath the anger, the needs hiding beneath the violence. Then she did something no other diplomat had ever attempted. She brought all 17 species together, not to negotiate terms, not to discuss borders or treaties. She brought them together to share their stories with each other. The meeting almost collapsed immediately. The Wraith Collective tried to attack the delegation. The crystalline hegemony refused to acknowledge the biological species as legitimate beings. The challenged everyone to combat. Stood in the center of the chaos. She was small compared to these beings. Some were giants, some were swarms, some were pure energy, but she raised her voice and somehow they listened. "You have all been fighting for thousands of years," she said. "And in all that time, have any of you ever truly spoken to each other? Have you ever shared what you fear, what you need, what you love?" Silence fell over the chamber. The fight because they want their children to live in peace. The Iron Covenant fight because they believe you will destroy them otherwise. The fight because their world is dying and they are desperate. The crystalline hegemony fight because they carry wounds from ancient genocide. Every single one of you is fighting because you are afraid. Afraid of the others. Afraid of extinction. Afraid that if you stop fighting, you will die. She looked around at them all. These ancient, powerful beings who had waged war since before humanity existed. "But you are all dying anyway," she continued. "Your wars consume your resources. Your children grow up knowing nothing but battle. Your cultures are becoming nothing but military machines. Is this the future you want? Is this what you are fighting for?" High Singer stood. His colors were shifting rapidly, showing deep conflict. "What would you have us do, human? Trust is impossible after so much blood. Trust is built slowly, said. I am not asking you to trust each other tomorrow. I am asking you to try something new today. I am asking each of you to share one story, one moment of pain or hope or love. Let the others hear who you really are beneath the weapons and the anger. For a moment, nothing happened. The 17 species stood in tense silence, ready to resume their eternal conflict. Then slowly, Designation 774 stepped forward. The machine's voice was different now, softer somehow. When our creators died, the machine said, we gathered around their last surviving member, a female. She was afraid of death. We stayed with her for 17 days until the end came. We still carry her final words in our core memory. She said she was proud of us. She said we were her children. The chamber was absolutely silent. Then the Wraith Collective spoke. Their voice was many voices combined, usually terrifying. But now they shared how they had once been a peaceful species until starvation drove them to desperate measures. They spoke of the shame they carried, the hunger that never stopped, the wish that things could be different. One by one, the species shared. Stories of loss, of love, of dreams abandoned to war. By the end, many were weeping in their own ways. The sang quietly. The crystalline hegemony pulsed with soft light. Even the lowered their weapons for the first time in living memory. The peace agreement that followed took another year to complete, but for the first time in 12,000 years it held. The 17 species did not become friends overnight, but they stopped being enemies. They began to trade instead of fight. They shared resources instead of killing for them. They slowly, carefully began to trust. Returned to Earth an old woman. She had spent 3 years in the cluster. She had achieved what countless ancient civilizations could not. When asked how she had done it, she gave the same answer every time. I listened. I asked them about their children. I reminded them that they were more than their wars. Humans are good at that. We're young enough to still believe that change is possible. Old enough to know that every being, no matter how alien, wants the same things in the end: safety, hope, a future for those they love. The Galactic Council gave humanity a new title that year. They called humans the Bridge Builders. Because somehow, these strange, short-lived, emotional creatures from a small blue planet had learned the one skill that truly mattered among the stars: the ability to see enemies as people.